passion devoured you, is forbidden and excites you. Comfort in the voice that kisses the brace through a mystic transmission.
Hi everyone, welcome to Direct Input. This is the final bit of activity really that we've got for the year at Future Yard for our artist development programme Propeller. And I'm quite a reflective person, so I'm really excited about this evening's guests. I am joined by Leanne and Janelle from the band Ġenn, who we've had grace our stage at Future Yard 4 times. And they live in Brighton as well, so it's no mean feat to drag them all the way up to Birkenhead 4 times over the last couple of years. I've purposely picked a band that I feel incredibly independent in a way where they're clearly ambitious, and you can just tell from their output that they really go about things in their own way and are very unapologetic in that sense. I usually hate using the word unapologetic because I think it kind of gives the sense that there's something to apologize for, but I don't mean it like that. And yeah, it's just over a year since the release of their debut album, which they self-released. And it's been a journey to get to that point as well. So that's what we're going to talk about this evening. So I'm going to bring Leanne and Janelle in without further ado. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for ending the year with us. Yeah, we've been doing all sorts this year. So it's trying to pick the right guest to kind of end the year with. The news just jumped out massively. And I think it's, I've got to know you a little bit over the past few years. And these direct input conversations are always a bit of an opportunity for me to ask the questions that don't come up in conversation when you're fleetingly visiting us, doing a show and then off somewhere else. So thanks so much for joining us before hopefully you have some well-earned breaks over the festive period. I want to kick off by, I guess, going back to, I don't want to say the inception, because I'm sure that you knew each other before the band kind of reared its head. But back when you started, I guess, rehearsing and writing as Ġenn, and what was it that kind of brought you together into this project? Like from a, did you have shared goals? What was it? What happened?
Well, where to start?
Yeah, there's a lot of lore. Yeah.
You say as Ġenn, but of course, I think I always doubt how far back to go, because of course there was a different band before Ġenn, started by Jan and Leo back when they were wee little 13-year-old kiddos.
My God.
Yeah, and then that band grew, shifted and changed, and then I joined, and then the 3 of us were like, we should move to the UK because being in a band in Malta is kind of difficult and more effort than it's worth. And we found Sophia on the internet. That's a whole thing. The first day we met Sophia was the first day we played a gig with them ever, and total potential catfish situation. But yeah, it makes it a difficult question to answer, because it's kind of like, I feel like from as long as I've been in this band, it was like a smack in the face of momentum and drive. So there was always the sense of like, we're taking this as far as we can go, and it got, it's been pretty cool, and happy accidents that we get on as people as well, because that's not something to take for granted, I think, as a group.
Yeah, I think, coming from a small country with a very small scene, kind of forces you to be, as you said, unapologetic, especially as women or female presenting individuals in a scene that was, looking back, very male dominated as well. So yeah, I think it was more of a case of like, you're forced to chase stuff, you're forced to hustle. Otherwise, no one is gonna go to Malta and pick a band and make them famous.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that doesn't happen back home. Unless you maybe go to Eurovision, which is it's a can of worms. Anyway, the country takes Eurovision very seriously. Let's face it. But yeah, I think it was kind of, we're lucky that we got along in a way, because there were a lot of people coming in and out of the lineup before we finally became Ġenn, essentially.
So when it was the four of you and Sophia passed the test and got in the bands, when did it start feeling like something that you felt was ready for other people to see? Like when did you gel and become, I guess, the band that you are?
I mean, I think. Because again, we played the first gig with Sophia the day we met.
That's
in
wild.
real life.
Sorry, but that is wild.
I'm telling you, this band could have its own Netflix documentary, because the amount of anecdotes and stories are like
that's
lot.
kind of what I mean, though, because I was in a band before this one, technically back home, and we were, we were a very sleepy band. We just wrote songs, and when I say wrote songs, it was very, the energy was just we're just kind of here. But then the second, again, when I joined the previous band that then became this band, it was very much sort of, I don't think there was ever any point when it wasn't something real, if that makes sense, because it was straight away, it was about what can we accomplish with this? What can we do to be heard in as many, corners of wherever that we can, that's within our, grubby mitts. Let's literally, it was a sort of, I often joke, for example, that there's probably a support group somewhere that's I've been cold emailed by Janelle Borch at some point, because it was but that's kind of always how it has been with us. It's very much, obviously, there's finding a voice within that, because we've grown and changed as people, because we've been doing this, as Ġenn for 5 years already, and longer still if you consider that we all were musicians in bands before that point. So it's kind of it was always just, again, the momentum always felt like it was there in terms of ambition.
So you put yourself out there immediately, pretty much, by the sounds of it. Did you have particular goals or things that you wanted to achieve, or I guess a message that you wanted to put out into the world, even at those early days? I'm guessing that.
I think it was always a case of, as maybe as toxic as that may sound, of trying to prove other people wrong in a way, because we were let down by other people and told that we couldn't do stuff so much, literally, along the years, that it's kind of a case let's see how far we can take this, as Leanne said. Yeah. I think at first, so when Leanne and I were at uni before Sophia joined the band, which is how kind of we ended up in Brighton, we were going back and forth between Malta and the UK, and at one point Malta and Spain, to see where we could potentially fit in. Yeah, so we were flying in and out every 2 weeks or so for and I think in terms of goals and stuff, we've always had very lofty ambitions. So I think there was always this sense of drive that let's see how far we can take this whole thing.
Yeah,
I think sorry, say your thing. I can rephrase what you said, by the way. I think more than proving people wrong specifically, I mean also that, but I think it's a case of feeling seen. Sort of, it was very much being invalidated at every turn, but we can prove that we have a place at the table. And it was, I think, 2019, which was the year that, you know, Ġenn became a thing, was a very interesting year because we moved, the three of us moved to the UK at different points. And so, you know, John early in the year, me in the middle, and then Leo towards the end. But we had, basically our logic was, we want to make ourselves known, so we booked a stupid amount of gigs in the UK, most of them in London, somewhere between 30 and 50, I forget the exact number, over the whole year. And that's considering that they started from April, so me and Leo were basically flying back and forth for a good few months to, like, you know, go back, come here, do the, you know, like, do gigs, go back, come back. John was in a studio flat, so at some point I think had us. I paid some rent. I was there so much. But yeah, I think the point I want to make is just kind of, it feels like the journey was from having the motivation and just taking it as, we're gonna cast a wide net and see, you know, like, take everything we can get, into refining that into, how can we use this energy in the most sensible way, and, you know, like, return on investment and stuff like that.
So it sounds like you were super committed from the word go, really. And I think that's, you know, that's a testament to what you've become as well, is the fact that in those early days you had to get flights even just to be together. But like, one of the questions I was going to ask is, in those, like, early days, I guess, what felt more important? Was it, one of the questions that I ask bands quite a lot is, like, is live, like, the key pinnacle thing about your band, or is it the recording and releasing? Like, it seems to be with a lot of people that one supports the other. Like, I play live to support the release of music, or I release music to support playing live. But I guess with you guys as well, the fact is that you had a big fat pandemic that came pretty soon after you all got together, so that's kind of scuppers that a little bit. But is there something that is
we know it.
Is there an element that is more important to you with regards to live and recorded music?
I mean, this has been a big conversation recently, actually. I think we were kind of, I think we love the live element. And in a way, nowadays, it's where you kind of, apart from syncs, it's where you can make money, essentially, especially as an independent band. So I think the live, it's very much, you know, a catch-22, which is I think why a lot of bands are finding it difficult nowadays to survive and thrive. In our case, live has been a way to grow our audiences as well. So yeah, I think now we're shifting things a little bit, because we've realized that by maybe prioritizing live to a point, it hasn't left us with much time to actually be in a studio and write, you know, be in a rehearsal room, whatever, and write. So yeah, but live has been a core part of our journey, I think, even to make ourselves known in the beginning.
Yeah.
And to grow the audience, because yeah, we're very much a live band.
Absolutely.
I think the dream is to get them with almost a nice equilibrium, because at the moment live feels easier in the sense that it's kind of like, easier is not the right word, it just feels like it's easier to leave an impact, I guess, in that it's happening in real time. You've got, like, the visual element, things like that. You know, we're all good performers, you know, and dynamic performance and all that. And I think we definitely want to get because our, you know, one of the things about our music is that we like sort of, you know, there is a sense of, like, sort of, we like compositional, like, details and things like that. We definitely want to put effort into getting releases into a stage where I think it can really stand, like, have a nice equilibrium with live, where it's like, whoa, listening to this band is so fun, but whoa, watching them is also fun. I mean, I hope that also already happens to an extent, but, you know, it's always a journey of growth and all that stuff.
I'm sure it does, but I think there is something to be said about it being a conscious, like, part of the decision making of what you do as a band as well. if we go back to when you decided to start releasing, like you've already kind of like summed it up a little bit for me by like the idea that you've just emailed everybody that you can possibly email. But what was that approach like going into releasing a debut single? Like how did you go about it? How did you do it? Just for a bit of context, we've got like an audience of local musicians that a lot of them have released music, and I guess we get them where they've already started pressing go on everything, and they're kind of backfilling their knowledge and their idea of how to be strategic and, you know, how to platform their music and point more people towards it. But we've also got a good gang of local musicians that are quite tentative, and I don't want to say reluctant to press go, but they're kind of amassing so many hints and tips and how to do things. So I'd really, really like to know what your approach was to putting that first single out.
So in our case, it's quite interesting, obviously, because there was like a previous project before Ġenn. So our first single under the name Ġenn was Do the Dance, but it was actually written before Ġenn was a thing. So poor Sophia kind of had to say, like, you know, had to concede for that one. The idea was actually to release an EP, but then we kind of realized that we were going in a bit of a different direction with Fia in the mix, and we respected her opinion, obviously enough, you know, as part of the new kind of lineup. And we pressed pause on that EP, which was already like 3/4 done back in Malta.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think we already had a lot of knowledge in terms of maybe the business side of things from when we were releasing stuff back under the previous project, because with the previous project we had also tried to cast a wide net in terms of press and stuff, but obviously it was a bit in fact we had released an album under the previous project as well, so we had all this knowledge that we accumulated over, you know, a lot of years. And I think with Do the Dance, we wanted kind of a label to at least support us a little bit, because again we had just, you know, arrived from Malta, you know, the finance side of things, you know, it's a big consideration and stuff. So we had worked with a small independent label in London called Everything Sucks, who were very supportive in releasing Do the Dance and then also releasing the EP, our first EP, Liminal. Yeah, so again, I had emailed everyone ranging from, you know, very small labels to even, you know, bigger indies like Rough Trade and stuff, Rough Trade Records. So yeah, I still remember like emailing people from my mom's place from my parents' place back in Malta, like in my bedroom, emailing people, you know, I don't know how many people I emailed, maybe 50, 60. At this point, I lost count. And yeah, Everything Sucks were the ones that replied and, you know, believed in our project. So we had secured the label before we actually moved to the UK.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think something that is worth mentioning in terms of like, we already knew some elements again from the before times, as it were, but kind of like I sort of touched on a bit earlier, it's like we knew elements, but we had the building blocks, but not so much how to use them in practice. Sort of, I remember with the previous band's album, we paid some money to do some PR in America, for example, which, you know, we got some, you know, articles here and there. It was at the time, you know, it was very like, wow, you know, they're talking about it, so cool. But obviously we weren't going to America anytime soon, so it didn't make much sense to do that with what we know now. But it was definitely a case, I think, between, you know, over the years of, well, I say over the years, I think before Unum especially, and a little bit before Liminal, it was a case of we tried a few different things that were very, you know, oh, this is a thing people do, let's give it a go, and then learned, oh, that one was kind of pointless, so that one kind of helped, and then, you know, eventually kind of trial and erroring it, where it became a bit more formulated into, you know, these are the things that are worth our time and money. These ones don't make sense yet, or these ones don't make sense at all because we're not that kind of band, or stuff like that. And it's just, yeah, I think takeaway there is you will make, I don't want to call them mistakes. You will make decisions that don't pay off, but then they are a learning experience. So to that end, they are worth something because you figure out, every musician, band, whatever has different strengths and different things that's, like angles that resonate for them. And you need to be very willing to make decisions that might not pay off, because that teaches you how to make the ones that do. And yeah, I think it's an important thing to highlight in especially what earlier phases were like.
Yeah, I think that's the mindset, isn't it? Is that you are going to make decisions that don't pay off, and that you need to learn from them and move on, and not see those things as, like, I guess, failure, but something that will help shape the way that you go about things in the future. So, releasing the EP with the label, like, how much external support did you have to put you in front of bigger audiences, or maybe think about things strategically and put yourself into audiences that basically help grow the band so that you can start thinking about an album?
That's a very difficult question.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's a very good question. I mean, I think it's important to note that we've been self-managed for most of this, for most of the timeline of this band, essentially, which we've had managers, but we never kind of quite found the right fit so far. So I guess we kind of had to make a lot of decisions. Obviously, everything sucks. The label, they helped a lot when it comes to the financial side of things. They were very lenient in terms of what we could release creatively and stuff, because there are labels who kind of dictate in a way, or try to change what you want to release a little bit at least, or influence. That's the right word. Obviously, I think the financial side and the expenses was something we weren't kind of fully aware of, how much money certain things cost when we went into the self-releasing album kind of mindset. So that was a bit of a shock, honestly. But yeah, I think we were very much involved in releasing, in the in certain decisions that were made when it came to releasing the EP as well. So yeah, they were supportive, but it wasn't like, since it was a 2-person affair, the label essentially, they obviously didn't have the resources that a bigger label would have, which they helped us within their limitations. And especially financially, obviously it helped us actually release something that was more substantial. Yeah, but the financial side of things, when it actually came to the album, we're like, oh my god, everything's so expensive. The cost, money starts literally flying out of your pockets. But yeah, so that was a shock to the system essentially when it came to releasing stuff on our own.
So the EP, like, do you think that, because obviously you were playing live at that point around it, like the world started to open again, didn't it? And I remember
kind of, yeah.
I remember seeing Eurosonic. So did you have an agent at that point as well?
So Eurosonic was after when was that? I think that was 2022, I believe, or 23. 23.
Beginning of 23, because we had, I think we had just, well, no, we'd not just started working with it.
No, not really.
With an agent since 22, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eurosonic was in 23. So that was mostly because of all the work and the live stuff that we had done following the EP. That was mostly self-booked as well.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't have an agent when we released the EP because it was literally during COVID, the tail end of COVID, but still no one was taking a bet essentially on a newer artist, without the support of a maybe bigger label. So yeah.
So I guess the attitude must have been like, we just need to keep going and we need to push ahead. We're not going to wait for somebody to come on board. Like,
Yeah.
how are you
Pretty
getting
much.
shows? Like, if you were doing it all yourselves, like how are you putting that together?
The power of sending a crazy amount of emails. Again, see, I've been cold emailed by Jen support group, but it was very much flinging something against the wall until something sticks situation where, and yeah, I think we then got a booking agent who saw us at Focus Wales, I think the year before, and that was where that conversation started. That ended up, with us having an agent. But before that, it was very much, we were kind of, hey, we're a band that exists. Please consider booking us. Here's some music. Maybe here's some videos, depending on. I don't remember exactly what we were sending at the time. I think it was anything we had, pretty much.
Yeah. I think what I've noticed, because I have quite a lot of people asking me how we managed to book so many shows on our own at this point in time, like friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the environment back then, a few years ago, was much more friendly and much more open to new music than it is now. Now I'm finding it, especially through people that I talk to. I mean, my day job is also in the music industry. It's becoming extremely difficult for promoters to take a bet on an independent artist or an artist who is just starting out, which I guess is also linked to the fact that a lot of venues are closing down, the whole thing with the economy, Brexit, blah, 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 especially artists coming from Europe or coming from outside the country. I mean, we were literally doing this stuff before. We were lying and saying we're based in the UK at a point. So that was another thing. We're getting support shows saying we were living in the UK, because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten or booked certain shows. But yeah, for friends, for example, back in Malta who have asked, hey, how can we get a show in the UK? It's become nearly impossible, honestly, if you don't have a following nowadays, which is quite disappointing. Because I don't think we would have even managed to get a foot in the door if we waited a few years. That's the reality.
I think more than that as well, it's a testament to how important it is to be fighting for our grassroots venues and promoters, because that is where you should, no matter where you end up, that is where you get the start, really. Because of course, like John is saying, these days everyone's a bit more strained, so it makes it harder for people to be seen. But I think there is so much of like the foundation of the scene, especially when you're I remember some of the first people that took chances on us were people like Loud Women and Fem Rocks and Get in Her Ears and stuff. So people who championed like femme and non-binary artists, because nobody else does. But yeah, I think sort of that sense of community and like people who are willing to take a chance on that random musician that just cold emailed you out of nowhere. We need to keep being vocal about making sure that these people have the resources and aren't in a position where they want to book this take a chance on this band, but they can't afford it, kind of thing. But yeah, I think so, to try and not like end it on a bleak, and that sentiment on a bleak note, like it's I think you can, it's just about kind of, well, not just obviously nuance, but being part of the community in that sense, either where you're based or with whoever you resonate with or whatever, and also pitching in for just being involved, really, getting yourself known socially and being able to have conversations with these people. And it's I think getting that any type of attention on you then helps you promote your craft, also helps give you a voice to, again, like, also be able to advocate for the what's the word? It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah,
It was a really lofty way to get to that point. I'm so sorry.
Agree more. I think everything that you've said, and I think we do need to be realistic about the fact that it does feel bleak in the live music landscape, and I totally get it. I think when we were coming out of the pandemic, there was such goodwill for people that were doing things. There was goodwill for people that wanted to get out there and share live music and share spaces with other people. And, you know, the fact that you did so many shows around that time is a testament to that. And I do agree that it would be a lot more difficult if you then tried to do that from scratch now, because I do think we're in a totally different place. We should always support people that do good things, right? So if there are people that are putting shows on and creating community, is like gravitate towards them, find them and shine a light on them. And I think that's so lovely that bands and artists do that as well as them. Like, it is symbiotic, and it is something that we kind of do have to support each other. It's not us and them. And I'm saying that sat in a music venue that there's no gig on tonight. That's why it's like so quiet. But yeah, I totally agree with everything that you've said. Like, I think, you know, the fact that you met your agent at Focus Wales as well is an interesting one, because Focus Wales to me feels like it's one of those showcase festivals that is possibly not as scary or as big as the likes of Eurosonic. And for anyone that doesn't know what Eurosonic is, it's the biggest live music showcase in Europe that every single festival booker goes to, loads of different promoters go to. And you really are kind of put on in a spotlight in those arenas. But Focus Wales feels like a nice kind of getting into that world. Is there anything that you did when you played Focus Wales to kind of prep for it? And then obviously you had that, you know, an agent in the room that ended up taking you on and that you're now working with. Like, was there how did you approach that experience of playing at Focus Wales as a showcase?
I'll be honest, it wasn't a great show for me because I couldn't hear the bass at all. So I was there like, I am doing all of this in muscle memory, God help me. So it's
Honestly,
really funny to me.
Yeah, I remember I was crying a lot, like before and after the show, because I'm telling you, before we actually played, there was no one in the room, literally zilch, and then people thankfully started coming in. But yeah, it was quite a tough one because we couldn't hear Leanne or like playing. Oh, so we didn't really prep. We just, you know, whatever happens.
Maybe that's why we got a booking agent. Yeah. Get the bass out, the classic, like the Metallica approach. If that's one to Google later.
What is this?
I do think that is what showcase festivals are like, though, right? Is that it's not a normal festival. It is people that are there to scout bands out and to look for bands, but they are kind of going from band to band to band, so that you do start your set and there's no one in the room, and that people have got a schedule written down where they're like, right, I'm going to go and watch 10 minutes of them, and then that venue's next to that. And it's one of those things where you've got to just not take it personally and just go for it. And the nature of it is you don't get a sound check. A lot of the time, they're not actually set up normal venues, and they're spaces within a town or a city around lots of other things. So it's never the ideal setup, is it? So that, I think what you're telling me the story that I've heard from lots of other bands and artists about, like The Great Escape, Focus Wales, South by Southwest, Eurosonic, is that there is an element of danger of not being able to hear yourself, not having, you know, the setup that you would absolutely love to really put yourself in front of these people. But they kind of know that, like those people in the room, they know that they're the conditions that you're performing. And it means that when they book you for festivals, is that you'll be able to cope and that you'll be able to smash it because you've triumphed through adversity on that stage. So I think that It is a testament to the situation that you were able to pick up a booking agent at Focus Wales off the bat of that.
I can give you a little. I don't know if it constitutes as a trade secret. It's maybe some Leanne trivia, if you will. So, I mean, obviously, I wear glasses. For the viewers at home that don't have their screens on, I am wearing glasses right now. I don't wear them on the stage, but I don't do like contact lenses or anything. And a big. I didn't really think about the why, but when I realized that, a part of it is that it makes the audience less, like, a bit blurry, where all you can see about them is basically, if they're dancing or not, more or less. But the point I'm making, the point I'm making is kind of like every time I go on that stage, I can't obviously speak to everyone else's experience out of the others, but like, it could be, a small pub, it could be a big support show, it could be a showcase, whatever. I mean, there is a bit about the audience in that, like, if you can see again that they are wiggling and having a good time, you can feed off of that. But it's always first and foremost about, like, me and the others on stage, and I'm having a good time with them, and I can have a good time with them, or find a way to have a good time with them, like, regardless of whether there are people in the room or they're feeling it or they're being a bit like stiff or whatever. And if I'm not having a good time, then I start like exaggerating my movements even more to be like, I'm gonna try and make the others laugh so that, I then, or, like, there's little tactics like that. But the point is just like trying to remove as many factors from the equation mentally. It's just about like, I'm just here to play some songs, man. I'm not thinking about this too hard.
That's good.
Obviously,
I'm well
again, I can't speak for the others. I feel like everyone has their own thing, but yeah, if you wear glasses, maybe unless your prescription's really bad, consider not wearing them.
You're actually not the first person to tell me that as well. There's a few other bands that I know that don't wear their glasses on stage for very, very similar reasons. So maybe there's something like that for sure. There's definitely something.
They would also fly off in seconds, so there's that too. I move too much. That's
true. So let's talk about the album and what I guess, the things that you learned with the EP, how much everything costs being one of them. Like, how did you approach I guess the formation of the album and how you wanted to put it out into the world?
Oh God, it feels like ages ago, honestly.
It was. It is.
Yeah, I think obviously we're like writing songs and we're like, yeah, obviously the next step is releasing an album. And yeah, I think we wrote the songs over like quite a longish span of time. I don't know, but typical us, the last few songs were written like right before the studio, or the majority. I don't know. It depends on the perspective.
I was just gonna say the first two were demoed in like 2022, I think, and then the last ones were written like 1-2 weeks before the studio mid.
Wow.
Yeah, and
no wait, sorry, my timeline might be off, but point is, it was like a year and a half, I think, of writing.
And we didn't know what Leona was gonna sing on half of them as well. So that's another thing. That's another thing. Yeah. What was the question? What?
Going into the album off the back of the EP, and like, I guess how we went into it and started.
Yeah, how did you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously from the release side of things, we initially obviously wanted to hopefully go with a bigger label.
Okay.
So we didn't go into it, hey, let's, release stuff independently. That was never, plan A, because of the financial and the marketing side of things. But then when we started, unfortunately, getting one rejection after another at a point, we're like, listen, if we're not going to release it independently, we're not going to release it at all when we want to release it, essentially. So then we started applying for a lot of different funds. We spent many a night applying for funds, and we managed to get a good chunk from, you know, a funding body back in Malta.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, which was a lucky one, honestly, because
Gotcha.
yeah, obviously there's more competition in the UK to get funds. So yeah, and that was honestly our saving grace, because I think without it we wouldn't have been able to release the album. In terms of recording and stuff, we decided to go for the different producers, mainly because there was initially, you know, a whole debate about who everyone wanted. So we decided to, you know, like get the best of both worlds, which was also, you know, aided by the fund, because if we didn't have the fund, we wouldn't have been able to do that for sure. Yeah, and then I guess it was just one step after the other, essentially. Yeah, and seeing what sticks, as well, as Leanne said. We got a lot of help from a, a person who I kind of consider our mentor at this point, in a way, Bradley from Singing Light, who was honestly, again, someone that helped us tremendously. And he was also suggested by John Newton from the band John, who was also personally one of the first persons I referred to when I was really panicking when we weren't getting the replies that we wanted. And was really distraught, honestly. So John obviously knows all the tricks in the books when it comes to releasing stuff independently, because they've released a lot of their albums independently. So yeah, he was another person that I refer to. And I think definitely without John and Brad, I don't think we would have managed to understand the ins and outs of releasing an album on your own. So yeah, it required a lot of help from really kind people who decided, you know, to take a bet on us, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Which comes back to that whole thing, you know, of community and really finding your people in this industry, because it can be tough, man, you know, trying to figure stuff out, especially, again, when it comes to finances, distribution, royalties and publishing. The list goes on and on and on. The right people to work with in terms of PR, radio, etc. Because, you know, there are a lot of choices. There are a lot of people, you know, who say they're one thing and they're not. A lot of leeches, I call them, essentially, in the industry. So yeah, man, like finding those two especially was godsend.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think that's so important, isn't it? I mean, you know, I'm not an artist, and you know, like I still have people that in the industry that I cling on to for dear life. I think that's the nature of the beast, is that when you decide that this is going to be such a massive focus of your life, you need to find those people that you kind of collect good people, I think. And I think, you know, especially when people are saying no, you know, and I think sometimes you do need to find those people that have tread that path already and can kind of encourage you to hold your nerve. I think that's a big part of it sometimes, is that when you are making that decision to go, right, okay, well, the ideal scenario is that we release this on a bigger indie. But if that bigger indie isn't in front of you and it isn't kind of, you know, champing at the bit to work with you, what do you do? And then it's right, okay, well, we need another plan, and this needs to happen. So it's really, really cool that you found those people that did help you hold your nerve and stop you feeling like that there isn't a way forward. And I think with the revenue streams in music are so spread out, aren't they? Like if you think about it, and because none of them are big, and it's when you put them all together, it is something that can get you to the next level. Is that if you don't know how to access those things and you don't know what you're due, like how are you supposed to then? So it is really, really cool that you've got those people, and yeah, community, absolutely, sharing what you're going through. And I'm sure there's people that will learn from this as well, you know, that it will help strive them and help them move forward. So how did you decide the people that you did want to work with then? Like, you know, if money is such a important element to this, which is like trying to work out exactly what you should be paying for, what's going to give you a return of investment, what you can do yourself. Like, how did you make those decisions?
It's a case of alignment of values, I think, in a way, and it's not a perfect science. I'll say that from now, because again,
I was gonna say, Leanne, we
well,
literally were throwing like whatever sticks at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, the classic. We use an expression internally sometimes that's modeled off an expression in Maltese that's like, if you don't make it through the door, you go through the window. But we have a different version of that we use, where if you don't make it through the window, you climb through the cat flap, because it's like sometimes it's again A didn't work, B didn't work, but we are just gonna keep trying until something does. But aside from that, that's not to say necessarily that we kind of, took whoever said yes in terms of the team. So I, for example, something that hasn't kind of come up naturally per se, but is worth mentioning, is that we are, as a band, we are very lucky / I'm very grateful that our dynamic means that we have a good division of labor in terms of skill stuff, and so we've got different people do different things, so we are a team, and it's not one of those situations where it's like one person does everything and the others are kind of there. And I mention that to lead into the fact that I do the money stuff at the moment, and I remember for Unum that there was a lot of, oh, we need to spend this amount of money to book PR, and that's PR in the UK, someone else for PR in Europe, someone else for PR in a different, and I'm there like, wait, what? And we need to book a radio plugger, and we need to get it's like, Jesus, there's so many different people and so many different, and they all have, 4-digit invoices. But what I mean to say is kind of between, I think for a few of them, there were options in terms of, we could go with them or we could go with them. And it's very much kind of like trying to read the situation of, I mean, what you can afford for one thing, which being a musician, there's that little bit of, I don't know if I can afford it, but I kind of have to, which, of course, where you draw that line kind of depends. But I feel like for a few situations, there were definitely, we were kind of between, say, different agencies, and we tried to gauge off who they worked with and how close they are to, say, the things that we try to emphasize in our campaigns and stuff like that. And of course, who we could afford in the context of, like, say there could be that agency that hits all the right points but is 3 times as much as the one that hits a fair amount of them but is less, versus that one agency that's like crazy cheap, but they're doing, I don't know, country artists or something, and it's like, I don't think that, so again, a really roundabout way to get to bit of column A, bit of column B, where there was that little bit of whoever expressed interest, but then also exercising a bit of, and also as well gauging their characters in some context in terms of whether they had similar work ethics to us, because of course, I think a notable part about how we work is that we are, we're very on the ball in terms of like checking in, having ideas and suggestions, and we need people that can match that energy, and most importantly, understand what Ġenn is trying to present, because I think that one is definitely a key part of the whole thing almost, because if you're spending the big bucks to get someone to make you look good, you want to make sure that they understand what they're working with, in that sense. but yeah, it's
It's so important, isn't it? If you're paying somebody to provide a service, but they're essentially advocating on behalf of you, like they're becoming your mouthpiece to part of the industry that is their expertise, where they have all of their contacts, they need to be able to represent you in the way that you want to be represented. How did you gauge that?
Trial and error in some cases, I think. At even, doing an introductory call, almost like an interview.
Yeah.
We did that with a couple of people. Yeah, I mean, we definitely made, some mistakes along the way, I guess, looking back. But I think, something that we're adamant on, and in general, like as a band, is that character and values, and whether you're, passionate about what we're doing and, what we can offer and stuff. I think that's the key, because if our values or our vision doesn't align, they don't align, it's kind of like being in a relationship or something, you can't force it sometimes. Yeah, but that's the reality of the situation, you never know until you're working with that person sometimes as well. Yeah, so that's what we did. I think we got some recommendations as well from the people that I mentioned and other bands and stuff, which were helpful.
Yeah, I was just gonna weigh in with, they had to at least like seem like they liked the band. That was, it was just like, oh yeah, Jenn's okay, I guess. Okay, now here's £3,000 you need to send me to tell people that Jenn's okay, I guess. But yeah, what Jan said pretty much.
So during the process of releasing the records, and obviously, we've talked about the importance of mentors and having people that can help you push you in the right direction and kind of shed light on the areas that you might not have known about, or just helped develop your understanding of the way things worked. What are the lessons that you've learned that have been the most valuable that you think are gonna help you continue to have impact in the future as well? Is there anything that you want to keep hold of, rather than maybe, the ideal situation working with labels or working with, other industry professionals? Like what have you learned that you hold dear, I guess? Like what have been the important elements?
This, again, a very good question. I think something that I've personally learned over the album cycle, and is to trust my gut on certain things and certain people, because most of the time that has proven correct.
Right.
So, and to really believe in what you're doing as an artist, because you can have a lot of doubts, and to learn, to basically have an understanding of what you're trying to offer. Especially if you're 4 different people in a band, that can be very difficult, sometimes. But I think through all of this, literally to a sense of self-belief, and that, as Leanne said, or you said, I'm not sure, that even if you made mistakes in the past when it comes, I don't know, to certain maybe people that you work with, or things that you thought were gonna work, because you've seen other people, and it has worked for them, for example, and for you it hasn't, to kind of find your way, navigate your way through things, and to try to diversify your options as well, not to rely on just one thing, thinking that's what's going to make your career, for example. I think we've had a lot of discussions about this stuff recently as well, because you kind of have to reevaluate every now and then. But I think, the gut instinct thing, honestly, has been something that I've personally learned when it comes to this industry over the past year or 2 years, to really believe in what we're doing as a group.
Yeah.
To really know that, listen, we're paying these people, so we're technically the boss in all of this. So, it goes back to values aligning, characters aligning and all that conversation that we just had, because I don't think we were very much aware of that. We're so desperate sometimes for stuff to work or to work with certain people that we were like, yeah, okay, you know, whatever. But yeah, you really have to have a sense of self-worth in all of this, because it's easy to lose it.
Absolutely. I think sometimes you think you have to earn it as well, but you don't. Like, I think that self-belief and what you believe in and what values you hold are so important to how we put ourselves out in the world and how we attract audiences as well, that you lose that, what have you got left? Like, it just doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one. I think, I mean, the answer I would give to this very much echoes some sentiments that John's like already said here, where I think you kind of have to hold on to what you want to do and why you want to do it, and you have to hold on to that for dear life. Like, and if you don't, then you need to understand that the decision to, you know, like, be in the music industry and try to accomplish in there is not serving you if you don't, you know, in the sense that, like, and also that you're gonna understand what you want to be, I think, more than anyone else, and what you want to present as. Like, for example, given that if you put the previous band back to back with this one, you know, with and considering that, like, the only person that, you know, wasn't in that band, Sophia, was also in a different band for, you know, about the same amount of time. The point is that I've probably been in a band for the shortest amount of time, and that was like, that's still over a decade by now. But sort of within the context of this band, we obviously, you know, given that we were teenagers and are now, you know, no longer teenagers, the sound shifted and changed to suit that, but sort of there are certain elements that we have now as more self-assured musicians that were already sneaking out when we were younger, but then we were set back because people were a bit more, you know, oh, you're old femme, you should be more riot girl, and then we kind of like started pigeonholing ourselves, and then quickly, you know, luckily eventually recovered and stuff. But it's sort of in the sense that, like, we let obviously having people that you trust and that, you know, that can provide mentorship and counsel is very, very valuable. But also, you know, these were people that we thought were that, but then, like, you know, we kind of took what they said over, you know, in the sense of, oh, how we read the situation must be wrong then, to an extent, on a subliminal level, of course.
Mhm.
But like, in hindsight, you know, a sort of, yeah, no, we even if we couldn't articulate it as well, we knew who we were.
Yeah.
And we just needed to have a bit more of that strength to announce it louder. And also, you know, kind of off the back of also, you know, like what John said / what I was kind of saying a little bit earlier, you are gonna get again, make decisions that don't pay off. You're gonna get rejected. You're gonna have people that don't like what you do, or they think you should be doing it, or whatever. And you do have to have that grounding thing that carries you through that, because you know, for how many different ways there are to succeed as a musician, I think we all face some type of rejection at some point. And you know, if you let that override what motivates you to do it, then it's obviously going to corrupt the very foundation of why you are doing the music thing. So yeah, kind of know why you're doing it, hold on to that, be self-assured, you know what you're doing more than you think. Yeah, and yeah, just, I can't think of a nicer way to bookend that, but
it's best advice, really, isn't it? And I think sometimes, you know, lots of bands and artists get bogged down in what in kind of like trying to work out what people want from them, you know, and letting that sway the decisions that they make, even in the creation of their music, let alone with how they release it and how they put themselves out into the world. But there's almost this is what the expectation is from other people, so this is what we need to do. This is what has been popular, so we need to do more of it. And it might be something that you're trying to move away from. I think you've got to do what's true to you. Otherwise, I don't understand how you can try to build audiences and take people on a journey with you if you're not really on your journey to start off with, if you're, you know, really thinking about it from that perspective. So what's next? What you're up to? What you're doing?
I mean, I think we're taking some time. December has been a really interesting month, actually, because last year and this year we decided to basically not do anything in terms of gigs and stuff. So it's been quite a month of self-growth, I guess, and we had like a bit of a discussion, the reevaluation, where we were going to go and stuff. I mean, we're very excited to be recording in January, so we're recording some new bits that we've been cooking over the past year.
That's great.
And yeah, I think it's next year is mostly going to be about what Lee has said, like really, honing in on what we want. Because I think I mean, as much as you said, the unapologetic thing, without ourselves a lot, especially being an independent band, and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to basically, what did I say on the group chat? Cut out the bullshit and just really focus on, honing in on what we want to do essentially, and, focus our growth on that. Yeah, a bit vague, but
that's it. In business and wait and see.
Yeah, we're like I mean, again, new songs has been very fun because it's a case of like, oh, who are we right now, actually?
Yeah.
Not that it's not in the sense that it's notably, it's more, I mean, given that the music is like it being very genuine to what we want to be putting out there is always a core point. But because you do something long enough, you have those like subtle changes that come from like you being a bit different person than you were 3 years ago when you wrote Unum, kind of thing. And it's been fun to explore that. And then it's a case of, okay, given the identity that this music has, what campaign then really emphasizes the strengths in that, and using what we've learned from from Unum, from Liminal, from whatever other decisions came along the way. And like, just at the moment, given its downtime, just kind of reflecting on that / lead up to recording stuff.
Yeah, we literally haven't stopped in a while, honestly. Especially the past few months, we've been touring quite a lot. So yeah, it's good sometimes to just reflect about what you've done, what you want to do, and even individually, and I think it's easy to get lost in this whole thing. And maybe compare yourselves to what other people are doing, which is something I'm guilty of very much. So
everyone's guilty of that, even if they're trying so hard not to be. I think there's you can say that you don't, but I think there is an element that we're all comparing ourselves to other people.
Exactly.
And measuring success in weird and wonderful ways because of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of where I was headed with like the final question is like, now that you've got debut records under your belt and that you've done all of this touring, is like, do you think that you measure success differently or set goals in a different way? And I think the fact that you're saying that you're using this period to reflect and to learn from what you've done in the past means that I think we're in the same mindset with that one a little bit. But do you think that there is change and difference in the way that you measure success as a band?
I think there is, in a way. As Lee said, we were kind of investing in a lot of different things when we released Unum, and maybe in some areas, we hoped that there would be more like, traditional success.
Yeah.
And what we're realizing is that as a band, we're kind of maybe within the eyes of the industry a bit difficult to place. But I think now we're at a point that we embrace that rather than, oh my God, it's a problem kind of thing. As Leanne said, in the past, we had the Riot Girl thing that everyone was immediately pigeonholing us as Riot Girl. Yeah, so I think we're really becoming more self-assured, both as individuals as a group. Because after some time, you realize that you can't chase trends, you can't try to fit it anyone's mold, because that means that what you're producing isn't unique.
Yes.
And that's catch-22, or not. It's not authentic to yourself or what you want to be, So, yeah, I think I kind of personally, as a very metric maybe based person when it comes to success, I've had to kind of I'm still in that process of trying to change my perspective of what success means. I think that the fact that we've been going on for this long as for friends and even individually is some kind of success,
That's what I was gonna say. Like, the success is that we're here and that we're still here. And that stuff has been really not fun sometimes, but we're here and we're still doing it. And there are people who have stuck around, and we're very grateful for those people. And just the fact that we're here, even if if we don't get that radio play, or we don't get this, or we don't get that, like, the fact that we've not lost that, like, again, that thing we're holding on to for dear life, that that little voice in the brain that's like, you're still enjoying this. But yeah, I think for me, that thing is that it's writing music that I feel like is genuine to what I want to put out, and it's with people that I care about immensely and I respect very highly as musicians and stuff. And I think that is success in itself, because that's not something that you find anywhere. And being able to preserve that and do it for as long as we have already, and hopefully many more years, that is a success, to be honest.
And looking after each other in the process, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest, this year was quite tough. Even we had a lot of stuff cropping up, and we had a lot of people doubting us, and that's, that you end up doubting yourself in the process. But I think through it all, we managed to get even more things through that self-belief and to kind of take care of each other.
Yeah.
Because, the industry can be rough, man, and it can really impact your mental health to a point where you're left like, do I even enjoy this anymore?
Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot more people are talking about, thankfully. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. But yeah, I think finding those core people and that community is what it all boils down to, irrespective of how many streams you have, how many followers you have. If you don't find that sparkle or those pockets of joy within this whole journey, it's
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm talking from personal experience at this point.
I think there's been a lot of what you've said. There's so many valuable lessons in there, and there's so many things that we talk about at Future Yard all of the time, and it's clear that we absolutely share the same values as you do, which is always nice.
Yay.
Thank you so much for being so candid and honest and open, and letting us in on your journey so far. And obviously, in the fact that you've played it so many times as well, and I hope that you get to come up again at some point soon.
We love it every time.
Yeah, it's one of our favorite venues in the UK. I'm not even saying that. It's honestly the way you treat artists. I think it's one of the best we've ever encountered in the UK.
That's gorgeous. That's so lovely to hear. Because we know it's not easy. I think, you know, artists aren't a commodity, and there's no other industry where you would rock up working remotely somewhere else and no one even says hello to you sometimes, let alone offers you a drink or some food, or like, you know, just and respects people and speaks to people like they're real people. So for us, that's kind of really underlying everything that we do is respect, and that we're all on the same team and that we're all trying to do the same things. So it's really lovely when we get compliments like that, because that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. But I'll leave you to your evenings, and I hope to see you in the new year at some point soon. If it's not in Birkenhead,
Likewise.
for sure. But thank you so much, and I'll see you really, really soon. And thank you everyone for watching. And if you're watching this afterwards, which a lot of you I know will be, I'll see you in the new year as well. We're back on the 9th and the 10th of January for Beacon, which is our in-person for the first time. I don't want to call it a conference because it feels really, really like corporate, but it's 2 days of loads and loads of discussions and Q&As and all sorts of lots of amazing people with gigs in the evening. And it's
workshop, you can say it's a workshop.
But yeah, I'll see you all soon. And thank you so much, Janelle and Leanne.
No worries, our pleasure.
Thank you for having us and the great conversation.
It was
Have
really
a good
great.
one.
I really enjoyed it. But yeah, otherwise I'll just keep going. But I'll see you later.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.